The gunshot echoed across the Montana Territory as Olivia Hayes tumbled down the muddy riverbank, her body splashing into the frigid water before darkness claimed her. She'd been running for 3 days straight, ever since escaping from the men who'd taken her family's land and left her brother bleeding on their cabin floor. The icy embrace of the Yellowstone River in May of 1876 pulled at her dress, dragging her downstream as consciousness faded. Her last thought was that she would join her parents soon enough, victims of the same greedy men who'd tracked her through the wilderness. "Easy now, miss. You're safe." The voice broke through Olivia's darkness, deep and calm like thunder rolling across distant mountains. Her eyelids felt weighted with lead as she struggled to open them, her body shivering violently despite the warmth surrounding her. "That's it. Come back to us." Olivia's vision cleared slowly, revealing a weathered face framed by dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples. Kind eyes the color of burnished copper studied her with concern as strong, steady hands adjusted the blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "Where?" Her voice cracked, throat raw from river water and cold. "My cabin. Name's Xavier Lockhart. Found you half drowned on the riverbank yesterday evening." His hands remained steady as he offered her a tin cup of something steaming. "Drink this." Slowly. Olivia accepted the cup, wincing as the hot liquid touched her cracked lips. The broth was simple but warmed her from within. As her senses returned, she became acutely aware of her surroundings: a small but well-built cabin with a roaring fire, rustic furniture, and the unfamiliar clothes she now wore. "Your clothes were soaked through," Xavier explained, noting her confusion. "Had to get you dry before the fever took. Borrowed some things from the trading post last time I was there. Hope you don't mind." Shame colored her cheeks as she realized what that meant, but the alternative would have been death. She nodded weakly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. You've still got some healing to do." Xavier stood, his tall frame casting a shadow in the firelight. "Bullet just grazed your side, but you lost blood. River nearly finished what the shooter started." Olivia's hand instinctively went to her side, feeling the bandages beneath the oversized shirt. "They found me," she murmured, memories flooding back. "Dalton and his men." Xavier's expression hardened. "Clarence Dalton?" She nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. "They killed my parents 6 months ago. Called it an accident. Then they came for our land, said my father owed debts. My brother Thomas tried to fight back and they—" Her voice broke. "I don't know if he's alive." Xavier moved to stoke the fire, his back to her. "Dalton's been squeezing folks out of this valley for years. Calls himself a businessman, but he's nothing but a thief with friends in the territorial government. You know him?" Xavier's shoulders tensed. "We've crossed paths." He turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "Rest now. We'll figure things out when you're stronger." Despite her exhaustion, sleep evaded Olivia that night. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw Thomas falling, heard the gunshots chasing her through the woods. Xavier slept on a bedroll near the door, his breathing steady, one hand always near the rifle propped against the wall. Morning brought clarity and pain in equal measure. Olivia struggled to sit up, gasping as the wound in her side protested. "Stubborn, aren't you?" Xavier commented, already awake and brewing coffee. "Most folks would stay down after what you've been through. Most folks haven't lost everything," she countered, managing to prop herself against the headboard. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Fair enough." He brought her a cup of coffee and a plate with dried meat and biscuits. "Eat. Then we'll talk about what comes next." "There's nothing to talk about. I need to find out if Thomas is alive." "And walk straight back into Dalton's hands?" Xavier shook his head. "That bullet wound says they aren't interested in talking. I can't abandon my brother." "No one's suggesting that. But getting yourself killed won't help him." Xavier sat on the edge of the bed. "I ride into Timber Creek every few weeks for supplies. Town's small, but news travels. Let me ask around, see what I can learn." Olivia studied him, This stranger who'd pulled her from the river and tended her wounds. Why would you help me? You don't know me. Something flickered in Xavier's eyes. Let's just say I've got my own reasons for wanting to see Dalton's reach shortened. For the next week, Olivia's world consisted of the cabin's 4 walls and the gentle clearing surrounding it. Xavier proved a capable if quiet caretaker, changing her bandages with clinical efficiency, and ensuring she ate to regain her strength. He rarely spoke of himself, deflecting questions about his past with practiced ease. By the 8th day, Olivia could move around the cabin without assistance, though her sides still ached fiercely. Xavier had gone hunting that morning, leaving her alone for the first time. She used the opportunity to explore. The cabin was simple but thoughtfully built: a main room with a hearth, a small bedroom, and a lean-to storing firewood and tools. Everything had a place, speaking to a man who valued order. Yet there was something impersonal about it all, as though Xavier merely inhabited the space rather than lived in it. A small trunk beneath his bedroll caught her attention. Guilt nagged at her as she knelt beside it, but the need to understand the man who'd saved her overrode her conscience. Inside lay a folded U.S. Army uniform jacket, the insignia of a captain still visible despite obvious attempts to remove it. Beneath it, a silver pocket watch engraved with the initials XL and a daguerreotype of a young woman holding a baby. Find what you were looking for? Olivia startled, nearly dropping the photograph. Xavier stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. I'm sorry, she said, hastily replacing the items. I shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have. He crossed the room and closed the trunk, his movements controlled. We all have pasts we'd rather keep buried, Miss Hayes. Who were they? Olivia asked softly. Xavier's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my wife. My daughter. Yellow fever took them 5 years ago while I was serving on the frontier. I'm sorry. As am I. He straightened, changing the subject. I'm riding to Timber Creek tomorrow. You're strong enough to be left alone for a few days. I could come with you, Olivia suggested. And risk being recognized? Dalton has men everywhere. I can disguise myself. Cut my hair, wear your clothes. She touched her long auburn hair. No one would look twice at a young man traveling with you. Xavier studied her, considering. It's risky. Everything is risky now, she countered. At least this way I can hear news of Thomas firsthand. After a long silence, he nodded. First light tomorrow. But you follow my lead, understand? One wrong move could get us both killed. Dawn found them on the trail, Olivia's hair shorn to just below her ears, her slender frame disguised in Xavier's spare clothes. The transformation was striking, with a hat pulled low and her features smudged with dirt. She could easily pass for a young man from a distance. Remember, you're my nephew Oliver visiting from back east, Xavier reminded her as they approached Timber Creek. Speak as little as possible. Timber Creek was barely more than a wide spot in the road: a general store, saloon, livery stable, and a handful of houses clustered around a dusty main street. Even in her disguise, Olivia felt exposed as they dismounted in front of the store. Xavier Lockhart! The shopkeeper greeted them warmly. Been wondering when you'd show your face again. Been busy, Frank. Xavier nodded toward Olivia. My sister's boy, Oliver. Teaching him the ways of the frontier. Frank barely glanced at Olivia, accepting the introduction without question. As Xavier began trading for supplies, Olivia wandered the store, keeping her hat low but ears open as other customers came and went. Dalton's men tore apart the Hayes place, an older woman was saying to Frank's wife. Poor Thomas Hayes survived somehow. Heard they've got him locked up at the Dalton ranch, working off his debt. Olivia's heart stuttered. Thomas was alive. She gripped a shelf to steady herself. Boy, you all right? Frank's wife asked, noticing her pallor. Just tired from the ride, madam, Olivia replied, keeping her voice low and rough. Xavier finished his business quickly, sensing her agitation. Back outside, he guided her toward the saloon. Wait here, he instructed, tying their horses. I need information only whiskey can loosen. Left alone, Olivia paced nervously, her mind racing. Thomas alive but captive. She was so lost in thought she didn't notice the approaching riders until they were nearly upon her. You there, boy? The harsh voice snapped Olivia back to reality. 3 men on horseback, all wearing gun belts and the same distinctive hatbands she recognized from Dalton's men. She ducked her head, mumbling. Sir? You deaf? Haven't seen you before. What's your business here? Traveling with my uncle, sir. Just passing through. The lead rider leaned forward in his saddle. Look at me when I'm talking to you, boy. Reluctantly, Olivia raised her face, praying her disguise would hold. The man's eyes narrowed, studying her features too intently. Say, you look familiar. Have we? The saloon doors swung open, and Xavier emerged, his stance casual but eyes sharp. Problem, gentlemen? The lead rider straightened. Xavier Lockhart. Heard you were holed up in the mountains these days. And you're still running errands for Clarence Dalton, I see. Xavier's tone was light, but his hand rested near his holster. This is my sister's boy. We're just restocking before heading north. A tense silence stretched between them before the rider nodded. Better keep moving then. Timber Creek isn't as welcoming to drifters as it once was. We'll keep that in mind. Xavier maintained eye contact until the men rode off, then muttered to Olivia. Time to go. They left town immediately, riding hard until the sun began to set. Xavier finally reined in at a secluded spot by a creek, dismounting without a word and beginning to set up camp. They recognized me, Olivia said, helping him gather firewood. That man, he almost knew. Dalton's foreman Miller? Xavier arranged stones for a fire pit. Mean as a rattlesnake and twice as deadly. We're lucky he didn't push further. They have Thomas at the Dalton ranch. Xavier looked up sharply. You heard that in town? Olivia nodded. Working off a fictional debt. We have to help him. Dalton's ranch is like a fortress. Guards, dogs, at least 15 men. Xavier shook his head. 2 people against all that is suicide. Then I'll go alone. And do what exactly? Xavier's voice rose in frustration. Get yourself shot again? Or worse? He's all I have left. Olivia shouted, then quieter. I can't abandon him. Xavier stared into the newly kindled fire, his expression grim. There might be another way. But you won't like it. Tell me. Dalton's hosting a gathering in 3 days. Some territorial officials are coming to discuss the railroad survey. He'll be showing off, which means he'll need extra help serving, cooking. Xavier looked up at her. They won't be looking for a serving girl. Olivia frowned. How do you know his schedule? A shadow crossed Xavier's face. Let's just say keeping tabs on Clarence Dalton has been my occupation for some time. You're hunting him, Olivia realized. That's why you live alone in the mountains, why you know his operations. What did he do to you? Xavier's hand stilled. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, quietly, he wasn't always in Montana. Before this, he operated in Kansas. Made his fortune selling contaminated supplies to frontier settlements. Including medicine. His voice hardened. The treatment my wife and daughter received for yellow fever killed them faster than the disease would have. Olivia's breath caught. I'm sorry. By the time I traced the supplies back to him, he'd already moved his operation here. Took me 2 years to find him. Xavier's eyes reflected the firelight, hard as flint. I've been watching, waiting for the right moment to expose him to the territorial officials. Evidence that will stick. And now? Now we have a common enemy. Xavier met her gaze. Help me gather the final pieces I need during this gathering, and I'll help you free your brother. 3 days later, Olivia found herself dressed in a plain servant's dress, her shorn hair hidden beneath a bonnet as she entered Dalton's ranch through the kitchen entrance. Xavier had connections in unexpected places, including Dalton's housekeeper, A widow named Mrs. Porter who'd lost her own son to Dalton's schemes. Keep your head down, Mrs. Porter instructed, handing Olivia a tray of glasses. Serve the drinks, listen, and watch. The hands who aren't on guard duty will be in the bunkhouse behind the main house. That's likely where they're keeping your brother. The main house was ostentatious for the territory, a sprawling 2-story structure with imported furniture and gilt-framed paintings. Olivia moved through the crowded rooms, serving drinks to men in expensive suits while scanning faces for her brother. Clarence Dalton himself was holding court in the study, a corpulent man with a waxed mustache and cold eyes. 4 territorial officials listened attentively as he outlined his vision for development. Gentlemen, the future of this territory lies in controlling the waterways and access points for the railroad, Dalton was saying. My company has already secured key parcels, through somewhat questionable means, I hear, one official interjected. Dalton's smile tightened. Business requires decisiveness, Commissioner Barnes. If homesteaders can't maintain their claims properly, the territory benefits from more capable hands taking over. Olivia's fingers tightened around her tray, but she kept her expression neutral as she moved among the men. Nevertheless, Barnes continued, there have been complaints. Serious ones. Violence against legitimate claimants. The governor is concerned. Unfounded rumors, Dalton dismissed. Though I'd be happy to address any specific allegations. Olivia slipped out as the conversation continued, making her way toward the kitchen. Through a window, she caught sight of the bunkhouse and the 2 armed men standing guard outside. Found anything? Mrs. Porter whispered when Olivia returned to the kitchen. He's in the bunkhouse, but it's guarded. Olivia set down her empty tray. I need to get out there. Mrs. Porter considered this. Take the coffee out to the guards. They've been standing in the cold, they won't refuse. Armed with a pot of steaming coffee and 2 mugs, Olivia made her way across the yard. The night air bit through her thin dress, but determination kept her moving forward. Evening, gentlemen, she called softly as she approached. Mrs. Porter thought you might appreciate some coffee. The guards exchanged glances before one nodded. About time someone remembered us out here. Olivia poured generously, using the opportunity to study the bunkhouse. Must be important, whatever you're guarding, she commented innocently. Just some troublemaker who needs to learn respect for his betters, the younger guard replied, earning a sharp look from his companion. Mind your business, girl, the older one growled. And tell Mrs. Porter we need refills in an hour. Olivia nodded and retreated, heart pounding. Thomas was definitely inside. Now she needed to get Xavier the information he required before they could make their move. She found her opportunity when Dalton led the officials into the dining room, leaving the study momentarily empty. Slipping inside, she quickly located the cabinet Xavier had described and removed the false bottom of the bottom drawer. Inside lay ledgers and correspondence, evidence of Dalton's systematic fraud and violence against homesteaders. Working quickly, she removed the most damning documents and tucked them into her bodice, replacing the drawer just as footsteps approached. She barely had time to grab a decanter and pretend to be refilling glasses before Miller, Dalton's foreman, entered. His eyes narrowed. What are you doing in here, girl? Mr. Dalton asked for more brandy for his guests, sir. She lied, keeping her gaze appropriately lowered. Miller stepped closer, studying her face. Have we met before? Olivia's heart hammered against the incriminating papers. I don't believe so, sir. I just started today. He circled her slowly. Take that out to the dining room, then. And be quick about it. She escaped with the decanter, breathing a sigh of relief once she was back among the crowd. For the next hour, she served diligently, waiting for the signal from Xavier. It came just before 10 o'clock, 3 short whistles from the darkness beyond the house. The dinner party was breaking up, men retiring to the study for cigars and brandy. In the commotion, Olivia slipped out the back door, documents still hidden against her skin. Xavier waited by the stables, dressed in dark clothing, his face grim. Did you find it? Yes, She handed over the papers. And Thomas is in the bunkhouse, just as we thought. 2 guards. Xavier nodded, examining the documents briefly before tucking them into his coat. Good. These are exactly what Commissioner Barnes needs to see. Now for your brother. Their plan was simple but risky. While most of the men were occupied with the gathering, Xavier would create a distraction near the main house just enough to draw the bunkhouse guards away. Olivia would then free Thomas and meet Xavier at the prearranged spot beyond the property. Be careful, Xavier told her, his hand lingering on her arm. If anything goes wrong, ride for Timber Creek and find Commissioner Barnes. I will. She hesitated, then impulsively kissed his cheek. Thank you. Something shifted in Xavier's eyes, a softening she hadn't seen before. Go, he said quietly. I'll see you soon. The distraction, when it came, was spectacular. A series of explosions near the Dalton Company storehouse sent men running from all directions. Flames leaped into the night sky, casting an orange glow over the property. As predicted, the bunkhouse guards abandoned their post to help with the fire. Olivia wasted no time, slipping inside the darkened building. Most beds were empty, the occupants having rushed to the commotion. Thomas? She called softly, moving down the row of bunks. Thomas, are you here? A groan came from the far end, where a figure was chained to a post. Olivia rushed forward, gasping at the sight of her brother's bruised face and bandaged arm. Livy? Thomas blinked in disbelief. Is that you? It's me. She fumbled with the lock on his chains, using the hairpin Xavier had given her. We're getting you out of here. How did you? Thomas winced as the chains fell away. I thought you were dead. They said they'd shot you at the river. They nearly did. She helped him to his feet, supporting his weight. But I had help. Come on, we need to move while they're distracted. Getting Thomas to the horses proved challenging. Weeks of captivity and poor treatment had weakened him considerably, and twice they had to hide as men ran past. Finally, they reached the small copse of trees where Xavier had left their mounts. Took you long enough, Xavier remarked, appearing from the shadows. He quickly assessed Thomas's condition. Can you ride? I'll manage, Thomas grunted, eyeing Xavier warily. Who's this, Livy? The man who saved my life. She helped Thomas onto one of the horses. And now yours. They rode hard through the night, avoiding the main trails. Thomas eventually lost consciousness, slumping forward on his horse. Xavier led them to a small hunting cabin he knew of, where they could rest safely while Thomas recovered. The documents are on their way to Commissioner Barnes, Xavier explained as they tended to Thomas's wounds. A friend in Timber Creek will ensure they reach him by morning. What happens then? Olivia asked, bathing her brother's fevered brow. If we're lucky, Dalton will be arrested before he realizes what's happened. Xavier leaned against the cabin wall, exhaustion evident in his posture. Even if he escapes immediate justice, his operation here is finished. Those papers prove he's been defrauding the territorial government and using violence to seize legitimate claims. And we're safe? Xavier met her gaze. Not yet. But soon. Thomas improved slowly over the next 2 days, his fever breaking on the second night. As strength returned, so did his questions about Olivia's escape, about Xavier's involvement, about what would happen next. You say he just found you in the river? Thomas asked skeptically when Olivia finally told him the full story. And took you in, nursed you back to health, all out of the goodness of his heart? He had his own reasons for opposing Dalton, she replied, glancing toward the door where Xavier had stepped out moments before. We helped each other. Thomas studied his sister's face. You care for him. It wasn't a question, and Olivia didn't deny it. He's a good man, Thomas. Better than most. Maybe. But what happens when this is over? He doesn't strike me as the settling down type. The question lingered in Olivia's mind that night as she sat by the fire, Xavier beside her, Thomas sleeping in the cabin's single bed. They hadn't spoken of the future of what would come after Dalton. The urgency of their mission had pushed such considerations aside. "Your brother's right to be suspicious," Xavier said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "Men like me don't usually have happy endings, Olivia." She turned to him, surprised he'd overheard. "Is that what you want? A happy ending?" Xavier stared into the flames. "For 5 years, all I've wanted is justice for my family. I never thought beyond that." He met her gaze. "Until I found you in that river." Her heart quickened. "And now? Now I'm wondering if there might be something after revenge." His voice grew soft. "Something worth living for." Before she could respond, hoofbeats approached in the darkness. Xavier was on his feet instantly, gun drawn. Olivia grabbed the rifle by the door, positioning herself to cover Thomas. "Xavier Lockhart!" a voice called. "Commissioner Barnes. We need to talk." Xavier relaxed slightly, though he kept his gun ready. "Come forward slowly." "Just you." Barnes emerged from the darkness, hands visible. "Dalton's been arrested. Your evidence was compelling, especially combined with the Hayes siblings' testimony that Mrs. Porter provided." "Mrs. Porter?" Olivia asked, lowering her rifle. "Brave woman. Came forward the morning after the gathering with a full account of what Dalton did to your family." Barnes nodded respectfully to Olivia. "Between that and the documents you obtained, we had more than enough to take him into custody." Relief washed over Olivia, so profound she had to steady herself against the doorframe. "It's over?" "Not quite," Barnes cautioned. "There will be a trial. You'll both need to testify." He glanced at Xavier. "All 3 of you, actually." Xavier holstered his weapon. "When?" "Next month in Helena. Until then, I'd advise staying somewhere safe. Dalton still has friends." Barnes hesitated. "There's something else you should know. The land seizures, they're being reversed. The Hayes homestead is legally yours again, Miss Hayes." The news brought Olivia to tears. Their home, returned to them. A future suddenly possible again. The following weeks passed in a blur of recovery and planning. Thomas regained his strength, though the ordeal had aged him. They stayed at Xavier's mountain cabin, safer there than anywhere else while preparations for the trial continued. As the day to depart for Helena approached, Olivia found Xavier by the creek near the cabin, lost in thought. "Thomas wants to rebuild the homestead after the trial," she said, sitting beside him on a fallen log. "Start over." Xavier nodded. "It's good land. Worth fighting for." He asked if you might help. "Said we could use a man who knows his way around construction." Xavier looked at her, surprise evident. "I thought he didn't trust me." "He's coming around." She smiled. "I may have had something to do with that." A long silence stretched between them, filled only by the gurgling of the creek and distant birdsong. "I've been thinking about what comes after," Xavier finally said. "After the trial, after Dalton pays for what he did." He turned to her fully. "For 5 years, I've been a ghost, Olivia. Half alive, existing only to see justice done. I'm not sure I remember how to live a normal life." She took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Maybe we figure it out together. Is that what you want?" "I want a chance to discover who we might be without danger and revenge between us." She met his gaze steadily. "I want to build something, Xavier. Something lasting." He touched her face gently, callous fingers tracing her cheek as if she were made of porcelain. "I'm not the man I was before Dalton took everything from me. That man died with his family. I'm not asking for that man." Olivia leaned into his touch. "I'm asking for the one who pulled me from the river. The one with the steady voice and steadier hands. He seems worth knowing better." Xavier's smile was slow but genuine. "It won't be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is." When he kissed her, it felt like the beginning of something neither had dared hope for, a future unbound by the past that had brought them together. The trial came and went, justice finally served. Dalton was sentenced to prison, his empire dismantled, his stolen lands returned to their rightful owners. The Hayes homestead rose again from its ashes, Thomas overseeing the rebuilding while Olivia and Xavier worked alongside him. They were married the following spring, a simple ceremony by the same river that had nearly claimed Olivia's life. Where once there had been death and desperation, now stood life and promise, proof that even in the harshest wilderness, love could take root and flourish. In the years that followed, their homestead became a haven for travelers and a symbol of resilience to the community. 2 children eventually joined them, growing strong in a home built on second chances. Sometimes, in quiet moments by the fireplace, Olivia would study Xavier's face and see glimpses of the haunted man who'd found her dying on the riverbank. But those moments grew rarer as time healed what revenge could not, the deep wounds of loss transformed by the steady presence of a love neither had expected to find. And when people asked how they met, Xavier would simply say, "I found a fighter when I wasn't looking for anything at all." And Olivia would smile, knowing that in saving each other, they had saved themselves.